Hello and welcome to Chapter 10, Chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro is an Italian word made by combining two other Italian words, chiaro for light and oscuro for dark. So the word literally means light dark. And what that means is bold contrast using light and dark tones. I will often refer to chiaroscuro as value. So the medium we're going to begin with today is pencil. And pencil is the best place to start because even if you've never drawn before, you are very familiar with pencils. You already know how to hold a pencil and how to make a line with a pencil, how to erase with a pencil. So first thing we're going to do is create 6 squares of equal size, about 1 inch by 1 inch. Don't measure them. It's very important that you can draw 6 squares of equal size, that you can estimate that. And there we go. Okay, now we're going to number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the first one, square number 1, is already done for us. It is going to be the white of your paper, so just don't touch it. We're going to start over here in square 6. Square 6 is going to be dark, and we want this to be as dark as you can get, pressing down as hard as you can on your pencil. Hold your pencil up near the lead so that you can really press down. If your pencil is sharp, it might break. It's okay, just keep going. And if you want this to be a flat square of black, and when I say flat, I mean no white paper showing through. So however you want to make these marks is fine. You can just kind of scribble them in there. And I think that's good enough. Okay, so for the remaining 4 squares, we want to create gray tones that lead us from white to black in even steps. And I should probably mention now that there are a couple of different kinds of pencils. There are writing pencils, drafting pencils, drawing pencils, and you could use drawing pencils or writing pencils for this. You don't want to use these disposable click drafting pencils because they don't really get dark enough. I guess this one actually does get kind of dark, but it's still too little of a point. It's taking much too long. I do love drawing with these, so don't use that for this assignment or for other value assignments. I'm just going to stick with my writing pencil for now. So the next one we should do is number 5, and this one you're going to, the 6 we were holding our pencil down here, with the 5 back up a little on the pencil. And that's how you get a change in value when you're using pencils. It's how hard you're pressing. So this one we don't want to press quite as hard. And when you feel like it's flat gray, I'm going on to the next one. I should mention also that when you do these, make sure your squares are actually touching like I have them drawn. It makes it much easier to go from one to the next. Also, since we're trying to get these in even shades, even steps, if there was white in between, it makes it very difficult to determine your tones. All right, one more, and I'm holding my pencil way back by the eraser, very, very lightly. All right, how you can tell if you've done this correctly is by squinting your eyes. It should look like a continuous gradient. And when I squint my eyes, I see that these 2 tones are too close to each other. So I'm going to make this one just a little bit darker. So adjust your scale however you need to. You can erase, you can add to it. If I squint my eyes now, it looks much more even. Okay, so let's continue. We're going to do some shapes now. And it is very important and exciting to realize that there are only 4 shapes in the whole world that everything is made up of. And with architectural and interior design drawings, the type of drawings we do, we're usually drawing something that hasn't been built yet, and that is completely different from drawing something that is in front of you. So if you can commit these 4 shapes to memory, then you can render anything in the world, whether it's in front of you or not. So let's start with our first shape. Cube, box, rectangle. And with this one, we have to keep in mind that everything has a light side, a dark side, and a medium side. So looking back at our scale, I'm going to draw a line right there. And I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw some lines right here. This is going to be light side. All of these tones. This one is going to be medium side. I messed up. And these are going to be the dark side. So 3 is on its own. Okay, let's look at our cube, and we are going to decide which one we want to be, our light side, dark side, medium side. Right now I'm going to make the top one light. I'm going to make the front one medium, and I'm going to make this one dark. And since that's the dark side, that is also where the shadow is going to be. And we are going to include shadows for this. Okay, so we only want to use our tones 1 and 2 on the light side. I'm just going to make it very, very light. Medium side should be about a tone number 3. And then our dark side, we're going to use our last 4 shades. And actually, our very last shade, 6, is only going to be cast shadow. So I can just go ahead and do that right now. And a shadow is darkest next to the source, the object, and then it gets a little bit lighter, and the edges get fuzzier as it goes away. So over here, we're going to use our last 2 shades. We're going to use 4 and 5. We actually use the lighter one, 4, down here, because it's reflected light, and then we're going to use 5 up here. I'll explain to you in a moment what that means. Here we go. Okay, so to map this out in terms of numbers, this is a 1 and a 2. This is a 3, 5, a 4, a 6, then it goes to about a 5. And that's how these numbers, of course, correspond up here. It's really important that you get a good value scale because we are going to be talking about it a lot during this book, and we're often going to talk about values 1 and 2 or values 4 and 5, and it's important that you have in your head what those values actually mean. All right, so that was our first shape. Let's go to our second. We're going to do a sphere. I will admit that this is the most difficult one, but still not all that difficult. In this case, I'm going to have my light come from here. I'm going to draw my shadow. So in this case, let me go ahead and map this one out first, since this one is slightly more difficult. It's actually not at all that difficult. We're going to start with tone number 1, and then it's going to go out in concentric circles. Concentric circles mean that it looks like a target. 2 and 3. Go back over here, 6, then goes to a 5, and then once again we're going to use that little bit of reflected light right there. This will be about 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it with the pencil. I generally like to start light and get darker, but you can really do it however you like. The reason that the sphere is more difficult to make it look three-dimensional is because of using these types of strokes. So if you want to, you can make little circles, and I think you'll find that that hides the strokes, another thing that you can do is use a blending stump, which I don't have with me. And you can use also just a little piece of paper that's rolled up in order to blend as well. Now in this case, I feel like I lost my number one value, my really light one, but luckily, one of our favorite things about pencil is that it's erasable. So I'm gonna go in with my eraser and just pick out that tiny little highlight. And when you're doing a sphere, highlights are tiny. It's just a little tiny, tiny, tiny spot where the light is being reflected directly. So you could use the eraser on the end of your pencil. You could use one of these soft gummy erasers. I like those because you can make a little point and then use that to erase. So you can get very precise highlights. And once you've finished that, one of the most important things is right here, using that number 4 really makes the sphere look three-dimensional by having that little bit of light right there. Okay, so we've got 2 out of the 4 shapes that I was talking about. Next one, let's do a cylinder. The only thing difficult about a cylinder is the ellipses, and we've talked about drawing ellipses in other portions of the book, so you can just freehand this in. And I'm going to map this one out. I'm going to use 1 and then 2. On the medium side, I'll have 3 in the middle, and I'll let it get darker as it moves away from the light. So we can go to a 5 and a 4, and both sides we'll do 5 and 4, and then where we have our shadow, we'll do 6. Take a look at what this looks like. So pretty light at the top. And I want it to get a little bit darker here so that we have some reflected light. And a little bit darker here. Darkest thing is still the cast shadow. That's always where your number 6 value comes in. There we go. One more shape, and that's it. If you can memorize these 4, and you can draw anything. You can render anything. So the next one is a cone shape and or a pyramid shape, but we'll just do the cone since it's pretty much the same thing except the bottom is an ellipse instead of a square. Draw them both, and let's map this one out. In this one, we're going to have, I'm going to say my light's coming from about here, so we'll have our 1, 2, 2, 3, 5, 4 on the edge again, 6, 5. Let's see what that looks like. So let it get a little darker before the edge again because we want that reflected light. And really dark for the shadow. things away. And as soon as you can do this, we are ready to move on to pen.